thank you sponsors for sponsoring. Our next speaker, we are thrilled to announce Isaac Zub. He is the co-founder and CTO at Simply Staking. He will join the Chain Block Summit stage for a talk on blockchain interoperability, one of my favourites. Isaac is a technology visionary with over a decade of experience building secure, scalable, and highly available platforms across the Web3, fintech, blockchain, iGaming, and cloud computing. As a co-founder and CTO of Simply Staking, he has led the design and development of high-performance infrastructure supporting billions in digital assets. So welcome, Isaac.
Blockchain infrastructure, interoperability. Let's go. So, small background about Simply, what we do. We've been established since 2018. We currently secure over $1 billion in staked assets, mostly Ethereum and other proof-of-stake networks. We have a physical presence in Malta, Europe, and Canada. We have our own data center in Malta where we run most of the blockchain nodes from. We run like 1,000 blockchain nodes and over 100 different blockchains. Actually, that's 177 today. We've been working with blue chip providers such as Chainlink providing Oracle data and RPC services and APIs, and we connect over 15 chains via CCIP bridging. So I'm going to take you through a journey of the DeFi experience. So I'm going to introduce Jane. Jane is a young person who lives in the digital age. She invested in a few ICOs back in 2017, and she wants to hold, or plans to hold, these tokens for a long time. Jane is burnt out like most of us and would like to take a break. She'd like to take a year off and travel and see the world. And she doesn't want to liquidate her ICO token savings. But no bank is going to give her a loan if she, if she doesn't work. So what can she do? So what if she uses her crypto as collateral without selling it? She could get a non-chain loan, and she can use it to pay for her travels. So how would she do this? Now I'm going to go into the technical details. So let's say she invested in Link a long time ago. So she can grab these tokens, use a protocol like Aave on Ethereum. She can borrow USDC against this link. So then she's going to use a bridge to send this USDC onto like Gnosis chain, where she can get a credit card, and then she can use this credit card to pay for her travels. So how does this work? So the user, Jane, will need to use an RPC node to send this transaction. Like every time a wallet interacts with a blockchain, there's an RPC node which is facilitating this transfer. There's an oracle on Aave on Ethereum. The oracle is there to get the price, so the protocol can know exactly what your tokens are worth and how much USDC you're going to get for them. And then the protocol gives her USDC, and then she'd use a bridge like CCIP or XLR or something else to bridge these tokens from ETH to Gnosis. And then there's another RPC facilitating the transfer, and then finally she's got her tokens. So I'm going to mention some of the infrastructure parts of the blockchain infra. So validators. So validators are there to enable transactions. So any user making a transaction needs to be verified, and the validator is there to do this verification. Validators are responsible to ensure that the transactions which are being submitted are real, that you have enough money in your balance, you have enough balance in your wallet to be able to send a transaction, that the transaction is legitimate. So the validators act as notaries that like stamp the transaction. This transaction is valid. There's a number of validators on the blockchain, and these validators come to consensus together. So it's not only one validator taking the decision. They collectively come to agreement called consensus. And then one of these validators takes a round to submit the block, and then it's final. Once it's submitted on chain, that's there forever. So oracles are these all-knowing things made up of multiple operators. An oracle is useful to give you data. Most of the time they would get off-chain data and then submit this data on-chain. So one problem we have with blockchains, they cannot talk, they cannot get access from the real world. So they require data to be submitted in their smart contracts. So we would use an oracle, for example, to get a price feed of something from a decentralized exchange or from an API and submit this data into a smart contract. And then the protocol and the blockchain can read data from the smart contract and use that data as a variable. Bridging is very important. We need to move assets between blockchains, so they enable interoperability. Most blockchains have different states, so a bridge would most of the time act as an IOU, where you have some tokens on blockchain A, and you need to move them to blockchain B. For example, you have Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network, and you want to move it to Ethereum or another network. So what would happen is that this token is frozen in a smart contract somewhere, and then it is not actually moved into another blockchain. It is minted on another blockchain and frozen on the other blockchain, and then you can use the wrapped BTC on Ethereum. And then when you're done and you want to move it back, this token is burned on it and moved back, unlocked back on the BTC network. So RPCs, one of the products we've built recently is called Spectrum. We bring multiple nodes together. So we want to enable developers to do what they do best, and that is build code and not have to worry about running blockchain nodes. Blockchain nodes are very cumbersome to run. We run like thousands of them. These nodes are quite naughty. they misbehave all the time. They go out of sync. Some of them could be huge, like we've been running 40, 50 terabyte nodes. Like Solana node is like an archive node is like 350 terabytes. Pretty impossible to run. A normal node would hold a state of like 2 weeks. Sometimes you need, most of the times you need archive nodes which hold all the chain data. These nodes grow pretty big. What we try to do is enable developers to have easy access to these blockchain nodes, which are so important to interact with blockchains. And we provide highly available infrastructure from any place in the world, making it easy for you guys to do your job. Okay, so as I was explaining, this is what some blockchain nodes look like. So CPU-wise, they're not that bad. Except Solana. So if we look at the state of the world as it is, Ethereum, a lot of DeFi runs on Ethereum, and a blockchain node is not that bad, 12 cores, 48 gigs RAM. Hard disk of an archive node is 4 terabytes, it doesn't use a lot of bandwidth. Then we go into Solana, which is a very fast blockchain, and we're using a terabyte of RAM. 3.5 terabytes of hard disk space, that's for 2 weeks of data on the node, and 2 gigabits of bandwidth. That's insane amount of bandwidth. And it's true, I checked, and they do waste that much bandwidth. XRP Ledger uses 8 cores, not too bad, 64 gigs of RAM, it's pretty standard these days. 3 terabyte hard drive for an archive node, that's good efficient database. And bandwidth 10 megabits per second, that's very efficient protocol. So what powers Web 2 and Web 3? There's really not much difference. It's the same infrastructure, whatever powers our internet and our websites, similar infrastructure, they're just servers, fiber optic cables all over the world, so you can see the image here, and normal servers. So the communication has evolved. Like back in the day, we had fiber optic cables and a few satellites. Now satellites like Starlink is covering the planet. While Starlink network is still not good enough to power blockchains because of throughput and latency issues, we're getting there. Like the communication landscape has changed significantly, and will continue to improve over as time goes on. One thing that blockchain nodes are very sensitive to is latency, because these nodes have to come to consensus very quickly. So like we have blockchains which are like sub-second block time, which means that in a second, however big the validator set is, let's say 200 nodes, have to receive a block, process that block, talk to the other validators in the space, agree on the consensus, and submit the block in less than a second. Like we have blockchains which are like Solana, sub-second block time. That's why you need so much hardware and so much bandwidth, because the nodes have to all talk to each other. So bandwidth is an ever-growing demand for blockchain nodes. So there's two options when we're running blockchain infrastructure: the cloud or physical infrastructure. We opt for physical infrastructure because it gives us more flexibility, and when you're running our size of operation, it would be too expensive to run in the cloud. Plus, you cannot tweak as much as you want. Running infrastructure on the cloud, so you have no way of optimizing your hardware. You have a high probability of running a server on a cloud provider. Somebody else is running their nodes on this cloud provider. It could be a high intensity workload, maybe another blockchain node, maybe a gaming server. So what we have to keep in mind is the cloud providers are still running physical servers just like we do in the real world. And other users' machines will be running on the same physical hardware. So if there is somebody trashing the server where you're running your workload on, the CPU will suffer and you will have problems. If you're doing this on your own hardware, you can notice the server is busy and you move your critical workloads to another server. On the cloud, you can't. I mean, you have some options. You can shut it down and hope, pray that it starts up on another server, but you never know. There were a lot of users using a local European cloud provider called Hetzner to run Solana nodes because Hetzner was very cheap. At some point, Hetzner decided that they don't want people to run Solana on their infrastructure anymore, and like there was like 25% of Solana validators got switched off at an instant. Had this been 30-something%, the blockchain would have been down. So they got lucky, but it's not very good for decentralization. We have everybody running the same blockchain nodes in the same data center. And cloud providers are extremely expensive, especially when you go for the Amazons, Azure. There's no way you can make money validating if you're running on these cloud providers. Not only do they charge a lot premium for CPU, they charge a premium for bandwidth. And bandwidth in blockchain nodes is extremely bandwidth hungry. So why would it make sense to run your own infrastructure? You can know what hardware you're buying and you can spec the hardware according to the workload. You can get a predictable cost growth. And the good thing about it is that if you invested, say, 2 million in hardware, and then you're running this hardware, it doesn't cost you that much money to continue running the hardware. So for like hosting the hardware, maybe your cost would be 30K a month. But if you had to run the same thing on the cloud provider, you have to pay the same amount of money every month. As soon as you maybe have a dip in sales and you can't afford 300, 400K a month bill, then you either don't run your workload and everything gets shut down and It's true. So it makes sense. Like you can use the hardware for 3 to 5 years, and it saves you a lot of money. There's better decentralization. So one thing that we bring is data centers to the ecosystem, which are not cloud providers. So if there's an outage in a cloud provider or there's an outage in the main data centers, using on-prem hardware providers such as ourselves allows you to keep operating while big providers are down. Okay, so physical infrastructure as a service, what do we do? So we claim we are operating on a 24/7 highly reliable service. We have a team of DevOps and network engineers 24/7 monitoring these nodes. What we do is we do the heavy lifting for you so that you can do your job, run your wallets, run your applications, and build your applications. And we recently launched Spectrum. We're currently serving like 1 billion requests a day. That's a lot of requests. And we're building blockchain APIs, which is something cool that one thing builders face is every blockchain, if you're running a wallet provider for multiple chains, every blockchain that you interact with, you have to build either in a different language or interact with a blockchain node in a different way. So we're building a unified API, which allows you to speak to our API in one language, and then we do all the transcoding for you, allowing you to build much faster. Okay, so what happens, how our blockchains get secure? So decentralization is one of the most important aspects of blockchain. I mentioned this before. Consensus mechanisms, so most protocols like proof of stake. So most protocols nowadays are proof of stake. There's a few, like Bitcoin, which are still proof of work. Blockchain nodes use cryptographic security to ensure that transactions are authentic. Immutability, this is one nice thing about blockchain, that once data is recorded to the chain, it's there forever, it cannot be modified, so anything that happened in the past is there forever. The economic incentives for people to run validators is they make rewards or incentive. They are incentivized to run validator. They earn a commission from the staking rewards or from the network inflation. And validators are disincentivized to cheat by getting penalized. Obviously, reputation is very important. So a validator gets slashed for downtime or for misbehaving, then the reputation is over. Nobody will trust you with their stake. Redundancy and distribution, so there is a penalty for being offline, so we expect it to be online 100% of the time. And some blockchains actually are pretty stringent on downtime, and if you're down for like a few minutes, you start missing blocks, and the people who are staking to you will not make as many rewards as they would with another provider who's online more often. So they will not delegate to you. So you have to be online as much as you can. Monitoring is something that we do all the time. These blockchain nodes, most of the technology is still not as advanced as we wish, or like there's so many iterations in software that sometimes things break, or they break very often. So monitoring constantly to keep stuff alive is very important. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. Before we go to the next speaker, or while he's setting up, I just wanted to bring some awareness to a board that we have down the back. I'm not sure where Richard is gone, but there he is. He's there. So for everyone who's here today, Richard's down the back. So there is a board down the back, which is if you need support or support needed, and there's also support offered. So if you weren't aware, you can share down the back there. Was there anything else, Richard, that I need to say about that?
It's already great things out there, so take it often.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there's a lot of support on offer, but if you do need support, please put it up there and let us know how we can support you as a builder or in the community. So before we go to the next speaker, let me introduce them. We are excited to have an alumni of the Aquarium Residency. Now, the Aquarium Residency is run by XRPL Commons, and this is such a valuable resource that we have in the XRPL ecosystem because it supports our builders, it educates our builders. So today, we have Shane Holker, alumni, who's going to join the Chain of Blocks Summit on stage, and he's going to talk about tokenization of real estate. So Shane will explore how real estate tokenization offers a transformative solution to long-standing challenges in property transactions, from speeding up verification and securing deposits to unlocking new investment opportunities and ensuring transparency with tools like Merkle proofs and on-ledger escrow. This talk will show how blockchain can modernize property ownership and fairness. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you. All right, so some of you who are Maltese might be old enough to remember a lot of the timeshares that were here. So this kind of looks like a small room here. You know, we locked the doors, now we're going to do a timeshare pitch, but it's not what we're going to do. So when we talk about tokenization for property, I'm not talking about like a centimeter of property or breaking down, you know, things into small amounts. This isn't about fractionalization, this is about actual solutions. So today what I'd like you to do is take away three things from my talk. Is tokenization can actually solve problems in the real world. There are tremendous amount of business opportunities for people who want to build. And we can put fairness, openness back into business relationships. So I am going to not get into a lot of math, even though I am a math guy. We're talking about principles, other kind of stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it at a very high level, so don't worry, but there will be a test at the end. So I will be giving you all the math, some math problems at the end for you to solve, and I have some t-shirts to give away for those who can actually solve it, okay? All right. So, right now, if you were to buy a property here in Malta, one of the things that is kind of a pain is how long it takes. You have to, sometimes it can take 6 months, it can take a year, and then you put down a deposit, okay? That might go to a lawyer, maybe not, who knows? Maybe we don't really know where the deposit goes, right? So this search could take who knows how long. So now you're going to be stuck waiting to see if you can even purchase that property. And then the money that you've put aside, are you going to get it back if that deal falls through? Now, I'd like to tell you that every single time you do get your money back, but that's not reality. Sometimes this does end up in court, and if any of you have tried to use any of the court systems in Europe, it takes a lot of time and you may not get your money back. So when we talk about tokenization is, how can we solve these problems here? How can we solve the search, or how can we solve the refund problem? So today, it's really slow. But with tokenization, we can speed this up. And how we would do that is, when we talk about going through the search requirements, we do still need to do that diligence, that provenance. But when that provenance and that diligence is complete, it doesn't actually get captured. There's a lot of times there is no digitization. Now, if you had digitization like you do in North America or some other areas in the world, that has to be maintained by our government But this could actually be decentralized, where that actual search could be tokenized, where you have provenance, where you have all those checks and balances, where the government has signed off that yes, these are actual, true documents for this property. And when you go to transfer that property the next time, that provenance would already be there, so you can eliminate that 6 months to a year search. You would be able to reduce that time. But what about the refund? How could something like XRP actually help? Well, one of the cool things with blockchain is we do have things like escrow on XRP. And by using escrow, you can actually lock in an amount of your deposit that would be tied back to a contract, like a physical contract, where things would actually have to be met for that actual amount to go through. Now, if those conditions are not met by a certain time, that fund would actually be reverted back to the person that put the deposit. Now, if the contracts are met, then that funds would transfer to the person who's actually selling the property. So what we're talking about here is providing real solutions for real world things. And right now, if you look at Europe, there's a few people trying to do this. But there's 400 million people in Europe. As an example, there's multiple jurisdictions. And this could actually help a lot of the governments, a lot of the areas, for people who actually want to start doing entrepreneurship. Now, get into a little bit of math, I apologize. So you're asking, how does this happen? How could you take reams and reams of documentation and then turn it into something that can be transferred onto a blockchain? Well, we can do that with just a hash. When you use things like workable trees, you use things like CK proofs, those other kinds of things, what you can do is you take large amounts of data and then transfer it down into a single hash that can actually verify that information. So if you make a change in that information, basically it says that information is no longer valid. Right? So then when you do a provenance, you do an update, you create a new hash, that can go on the blockchain. The blockchains then would be able to validate that your data is actually there. So what you can take is NFTs, simple technology. Work proofs were created back in the 70s. This is old technology, but it's cryptographic. And basically what it does is it allows you to take something complex, turn it into something simple, be able to transfer that, and then be able to show people that this information is actually real. Okay, now this is really short, and this is where I want to kind of give you that math question, and then we can go into some questions. Okay, so here in Malta, there's the loss to build. From when you go inside from the bottom of the floor to the ceiling, it's X amount of meters. And if you have a €1 coin, and this will be, for those of you who actually want to do some math, and I'll give you a t-shirt if you get this right, I do know the answer. If you stack them on top of each other, from the bottom of the floor all the way to the ceiling, how many coins would you need? Okay? All right. Okay, so questions about tokenization. Does anybody have some questions here?
So the idea is that practically not only real estate, but anything that is in the real world can be presented in a token, like an NFT, and in this way practically we completely, let's say, eliminate notaries, we eliminate cataster. What I'm trying to say is it's going to be me and you personally doing a transaction, and I have your apartment, you have my crypto, for example.
So you still need the paperwork, because we still do need that legal translation. So what this would is an easier way to control those contracts.
Of course.
So that you can prove that that's the contract you signed, you'd have a copy, you'd have access to it. You could add an encryption layer, like with the hashing, so that no one else can see the contract, and only you and the other party would have access to it. So there are these kind of solutions out there for you to build off of. I have a lot of actually GitHub repos that you could use that actually has encryption and everything else where you can actually set this up. I do have ways you can work with trees, everything else like that. So if you are looking at building one of these, you can probably talk to me and I can show you technically how to do this for most things that are tokenized. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Let's put it this way. How long do you think it's going to take for this to be on a state level, to be used, let's say, for everyday purpose of everybody in Malta?
So tokenization is kind of like what we call in like startups. We call it as like a target. So basically what it is you see a very nice lake with a little bit of water on it. And as you walk out, you get deeper and deeper into it, that tar car kind of drags you down, right? If you look at it from a perspective of solving one problem or a couple of problems, and solving that regionally or for an area where you live, then tokenization becomes possible. If you're looking at it from a global scale or even at a higher government level, you kind of have to prove this technology first to them before they're adopted. Governments are very slow, right? Some are progressive, some are not, and unless there's actual like push from lobbying and things like that, things like this will move very, very slowly.
So it's going to take a while.
Any other questions? All right, I wanted to do this short and sweet because then we're going to go for lunch here in a few minutes. So if you do have an answer there for that, I have, I think, about 6 or 7 t-shirts left. So if you can give me an answer, I can come over and I can give you a t-shirt. And thanks, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, so we would like to invite everyone who is here to lunch. Please feel free to go on into where the food was earlier. Everyone is welcome to join. Okay, so I'll see you in there. Thanks.